Welcome to the Globetrottin ADs. This podcast is for you, athletic directors, activity coordinators, coaches, and program associates based in international schools around the world. The Globetrottin ADs is proudly hosted by Nick DeForest from the American International School Vienna and Matt Fleming from the American International School of Budapest. Here they are now, Nick and Matt and the Globetrottin ADs.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Globetrottin ADs. We're happy to have you here. We're continuing on with our series on highlighting course content of LTC 910, sponsored by the NIAAA. And today we're focused on the section titled Managing Increased Workloads. So we're very excited to dig into that a little bit with the course authors who are joining us today. And I'll throw it over to my partner, Nick, in Vienna to introduce them.
Yes, thanks, Matt. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Guys, we have two brand new guests, returner with us. We want to jump right into it. So we want to welcome Scott Hibbard. He's our returner, Athletics and Activities, Dubai American Academy. Not far down the road is Mark Buschini, Athletics Director, American School of Dubai, and the other newbie, John Powell, Activities and Athletics Director at the American School of Brasilia. Pretty good group here, Middle East to Europe to South America, and I think we're all dealing with more work wherever we are in the world. Workload has increased maybe for every profession out there, but ADs for sure. So great course for LTC 910, Managing Increased Workload. So let's jump at it. Welcome, guys. And can you tell us a little bit about your course?
I think I'll jump in first as kind of the lead author or as the returner.
Wait a second, Scott. John, Are you and Mark, are you okay with him calling himself the lead author? Is that been arranged? Yes.
My name was first in the list.
Yeah, you were. I'm just teasing.
I did say that before we started recording.
Do I do have to say John's done a lot of the work?
There you go. No, I'm just totally teasing. Scott, I won't interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I think we're with the course. We've all looked at what our jobs have increased. Mark, knowing him from being at the school next door, he's had to do different jobs, and what John's explained, we're all working harder and more because of the pandemic and what our schools are asking us to do. And now coming out of it, it's even more. Just in the last 3 days, we've started our after school program for elementary school activities, and we have 700 kids. So now we're back into a program that we used to run, but now we have to go back to it and still try to carry on what we have to do pandemic-wise.
Sure.
That the school's thrown onto us.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, not just in the pandemic, but lots of other things, right? That the ADs do, picking up stuff. The more you do, the more they give you, right? John or Mark, maybe tell us about some of the sections of the course. Obviously, it's not pandemic related, right? It's general.
Yeah, sure, Nick. Matt, thanks for having me on. We got three parts to the section that we're kind of working on: transfer of skills, what in the workplace, how you can go from division to division, and then we have back-ended tips and tricks, which is kind of my area, and then the balance of home and work. So when you think about managing an increased workload, those three areas are kind of how we try to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. That I wouldn't have thought, just thinking of the topic right off the top of my head, about home at all. But of course, that's part of the balancing act, right, of stuff at home. So great. Well, how did you go about writing it? Or, I mean, were these things that you've all experienced, the three of you, or did you draw from some other places?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Thanks, Matt, for having me on, and a first-time guest. And, when we sat down to discuss what the topic that we'd been assigned to go through, was during a pandemic, and I think everybody had shifted gears slightly into how can we support our school and athletic programs, but also support the institution where they needed that support. So just the managing of that workload really kind of came to light. And, looking at the topics that we have, when you look at a transfer of skills, for example, I think it's a positive and a negative. I think ADs typically over the years acquire skills in a multitude of areas, related to budget, to conflict resolution, to leadership, to management of people. And those are all really sought after skills in an organization and in an institution. So when you're in a bit of a crisis such as COVID-19, sometimes the institution will look to individuals as ADs that say, okay, can you help run an online section of our school because you can manage people well, you can deal with the adversity that comes along, you quick thinking on your feet. Naturally, ADs all say yes, most of the time we can help. So then you end up taking on another avenue of a job that you didn't think that you'd signed up for. So in a way, it's super positive because this is great. I'm learning, it's advancing my professional career. But at the same time, it can have a little bit of a negative effect in that now you've got added responsibilities, added workload on top of the role that says on your business card what you're doing. So I think that's kind of where that transfer of skills comes in. So it really does turn into that positive and negative.
Right. And, nobody starts out as an AD, right out of the gate. You have to have some other experience in other areas of the school. A lot of us have been PE teachers or classroom teachers of some sort. And, you learn those skills and working with kids and working with adults at the same time. But the AD skills, I think, are a little bit different because you end up dealing with so many different facets of the school that make up the community, parents to the maintenance folks, to the teaching staff, to your coaches, the kids, everything. So transfers of skills, I think, is such a huge part of taking what you've learned in the past, making it into your job, a useful skill you can use, but then you're still ongoing. It's always ongoing. There's always something new you got to learn, especially in this last pandemic. I'm assuming for most of us, it was learning how to work online and working with Zoom and working with communication. So, looking back in terms of like what happened through the pandemic, is there anything you guys learned from that experience? We touched on it a little bit, but what specifically maybe from the pandemic could you relate to this course in terms of transfer of skills?
I think the organization, Matt, we all probably picked up a little tech help along the way since we were sitting at home working through Zoom, through just, email a lot more. And then, if you explore enough on your own and you find your own ways to get your systems organized a little bit better during some of the downtime that we had, I think that was a big help for me because I could concentrate. Just kind of getting used to a new school as well, because in my position, I signed the contract before the pandemic really took off, and then arrived to a school where there were two part-time ADs and they merged to my position as one. And so that was even a little bit different, getting used to knowing everybody in the school as a new guy.
Right.
And
not even, were you even in person?
We were not in person till mid-October.
Year.
So I kind of tried to, manage the same program that I would do exactly through Zoom as much as I could. And even towards the end of, the spring 2020, when we went into the quarantine in the Zoom world, I used some of those things that I learned, brought them into the first semester, and that seemed to help a lot the program.
Yeah. So sorry, go ahead, Scott.
You go, Scott.
No, I was going to say, carrying on from John, from our perspective, from our school, we talk about blips and flips.
Okay.
What went wrong? What was the blip, and how did you flip it to make it better? And from our school perspective, we're a solution fluency school, so kids are taught that it's not wrong right away. You're on a path to learn, and then you'll get to an answer. So being able to point out what the blip was is really important, and then flip it to make it better and make it improved.
Right. And not just for the kids, right? That's for everybody.
It's for everybody.
That's
Yeah, exactly.
Of course.
Well, I think this is probably a good segue to the next part, which is, in terms of what the course content is for LTC 910, your focus was on managing increased load. So part 2 focuses on backend tips and tricks. So I don't know if you guys want to share anything. And we don't want you to, we mentioned this in the last podcast, but don't give too much away, because we don't want anybody to just think they can listen to the podcast and get all the content. But is it, maybe a highlight or two from part 2, which was related to back-end tips and tricks? Anything you guys want to share from that section?
Yeah, Matt. Well, kind of how we designed our breakdowns, we each kind of took a category, and this one was in my wheelhouse. So like I kind of broke it up into 4, so I'll keep it to the 4, not to give it all away. But, what school platforms is your school using? Everybody's going to be different. I'm sure a lot of us do use the Google Suite, but some of us maybe on the Outlook or a completely different system. How are you using those in your school? Are you trying to sail your ship on your own away from it, or are you actually aboard the ship that's really not going to change? How do you use your calendar effectively is another back-ended tip and trick that I kind of I'm looking into, just daily scheduling, usage within your coaching staff, just staying on that exact routine of always using your calendar, whichever one it is. A little bit of, micro to macro planning. Are you planning small and then branching out big? Or are you planning big and then, condensing it with your staff as well, coaches, anybody in your office too? And then also letting, your other areas of the school know about these systems that you have in athletics and activities. And then the last one, looking at kind of communication advancements, which I'm still getting into, and just making sure that the things that we learned during the pandemic we're using as leverage to, hey, it really worked. We put out surveys a lot. Our families answered them. Our students answered them. Maybe we continue that regardless if we're in face-to-face or not. So those are about the 4 key areas of what we're looking at, back-ended tips and tricks.
Wow, that's cool. And that's definitely on the minds of people, right? Yeah, we mentioned it's not just a pandemic course. It's not, if you're not writing a course, maybe you don't know how we came up with these 6 topics, and that was a vote, right? It was a survey sent out through the NIAAA asking for, to rank and give some main concerns. And these were the 6 topics that came to light, right? And it's also one of the top answers in the survey that I sent out the last couple of years, right? It's been the second answer for 2 years in a row of a top concern of an AD is, managing increased workload. So really, as you guys dig deeper into it, why do you think this is just such a main concern of ADs constantly, not just right now?
I think naturally, ADs in a position where they want to see their institution become better, not only from an athletic standpoint, but also just from an academic and just the school itself. And we want to see our students have more opportunities. We want to give them the best that we can in our position. So naturally, when every year you reflect back on the year, you see where areas that you could have had improvement. Schools, especially ours, is growing in student population. So more students mean that do we need bigger program? So naturally, you want to fill that gap that you see, or the gap you see arising. So then you take that on. So, okay, we need to add 3 more middle school teams for boys and girls. We need that, then needs a new budget. You need more coaches. Okay, we need another freshman team now because our student population is growing and we want to have more students engaged. So that adds to that. So it's just that a little bit like that transfer of skills. It can be a positive and negative in the same light, is that you're doing what you think is best for the institution and students, but at the same time, it's adding more layers of work onto you. And And that's where we're at right now. And then you can go into the back-end tips and tricks and ways that you can work with that through delegation and get an extra funding for support. And, that's where that comes in.
Right. It's good that you brought that up, because until now we were talking about additional, maybe different things, or at least during the pandemic, especially ADs doing a different role. But increased workload is also just with your actual job description, right? More teams is, like you said, more coaches and more work, more scheduling. That's more work right there. So do you then hire someone else in your office to help with that? Or is it the same going forward?
I think with what Mark just said, we're seeing an increase of school population or demand at schools within Dubai. And just talking and knowing what our two schools enrollments are, it's exponentially bigger than what it was 2 years ago. And speaking with Mark, we need to be able to keep up with him program wise, or we're going to have some type of issues with parents or the school community.
Yeah, you guys have an interesting dynamic right across the street.
Yeah, but right across the street from each other.
You compete for students. And Matt, let's just have Scott and Mark on just to talk about their relationship across the street. Yeah. I mean, they seem pretty friendly right now, but no.
Yeah, wait till baseball and softball season. The foul balls are coming into each other's school grounds. That's how close we are.
That doesn't happen. Does that really happen?
Yeah.
Or could that happen? Yeah.
It could happen.
How close we are. Yeah, if you get a good foul ball, it's going into Scott's softball field with that.
Or into his new kindergarten building.
Oh my goodness!
From ours.
That's funny. that can't be a situation in any other international school anywhere, right? With two big schools that close together.
Yeah, within what is it? A block radius. We've got about, I think it's 4,700 students. Than a block radius. But it creates a lot of positives too. The back and forth, athletic rivalries that we have, the friendships that the students have. A home game for Scott is like a home game for us. So it does have that many positives to it.
That's cool. Oh, we're off track though. Matt, bring us back on track, buddy. Come on.
Well, we're talking about increased load and all these tips and tricks of dealing with things and skill work, and with all these added pressures, even more so comes the necessity to balance your workload of your home and your work. So, right, how do you balancing those things? So I know that's part of this section of the course as well. And again, I'm amazed that this is going to fit into a 1 hour section of this whole course. I don't see how this is going to happen, because we talked to the guys last time who were covering their section, and I know the 910 section I've been working with, which deals with home stays versus hotel stays. I just can't see how it's all going to fit into an hour time slot. So I think this is going to have to be readjusted and discussed against NIAAA. But this, I think, was a great focus for you guys to hit on. And I'm really interested to see, what did you guys come up with? Or again, don't tell it all, but what did you come up with in terms of some strategies or even just topics to talk about with balancing at home and work? Because it's so important. I know the focus on wellness for educators in general has been huge, and people in all different sorts of lines of work, just taking care of yourselves. So what did you guys come up with in this part 3 part of your course?
I think when it comes to the balance of work and home, I think you need to focus on a few things that work for you as a person. We all have long jobs. We all work long hours. We've always had worked long hours. So what do you do during the day to help you refocus? Before or during, last school year, I always like to take a little bit longer for lunch, get a chance to walk, listen to a podcast or a book, work out in the morning, but also at home, we've got to be able to learn to shut ourselves off from work and spend time with our family. And that's always been a big focus of mine, never to bring work home. Yeah, I'll answer the occasional text or WhatsApp or email, but the work computer never comes home during the week. And that's something that I do personally. So we all have to find, different things.
Yeah, definitely, Scott. I can speak from a young experience being a married man just for a short time now, but trying not to bring the work home is a lot better, even though you do want to be available for your staff for those questions. Or I haven't had quite many emergencies after school hours at this moment, but there is that, text that comes through where, coach is now tested positive. So you're kind of scrambling to prepare at least for the next day. When does that stop? It's really hard. It's a really hard moment right now for us. We're really balancing that time that you have, whether it be before work, if you have adjusted hours. Like I start a little later because I stay a little bit later. And that's the nice part of working at this school. So in the morning, that's my time with way more daylight, because when I get home, it's dark and I don't have anything around the house to really do. So.
Yeah. A big one for me too is I've got three youngest kids and third grade and kindergarten. So now they're getting to an age where they can be involved in. They luckily all enjoy athletics, so I can get them more involved in kind of a weekend tournament when we're back. Baseball season comes along. Maybe it's a bat boy, bat girl for the game, and they're there, so they're with dad at the same time that I'm there. Volleyball, they can help, be a ball boy at the side or whatever it could be, a ball girl. And I think that just is a good balance for having my kids see dad at work, but also learning from the varsity boys and girls that are there. They enjoy that leadership aspect, and my kids can learn a lot from the student athletes we have and how their character and how they respond to lose a game and what do they do. And they start to see our athletes as people that they really look up to.
Yeah.
So it's kind of having them be around, and luckily the American School of Dubai pre-pandemic, and hopefully when we're through this, is a very much community school. So there's lots of people and community around. So having the kids around isn't something that is looked upon as strange. It's welcomed. It's let's get people to these events and games and tournaments.
Yeah, I know from my experience, my kids have been involved in our programs all the way from, of course, from elementary and their activity programs, then in middle school, high school, 3 seasons of sports every year, middle school through high school. Then my wife's a coach, I coach. So in a way that's helpful because it's just part of our routine. It's just part of our day. Is we know we're going to be there till 6 o'clock, and it's just kind of it's no major shock to the system. It's just our days, our evenings are kind of built around that in a way. So, but then I'm completely with you, Scott, about it. It pretty much ends as soon as I get home because I'm full up, and if there's something that's pressing and needs to be done, and that's what comes with, I think, also with experience as an AD, is knowing when things are urgent and when they're not, or kind of somewhere in between. So you can kind of figure out when you're going to get to that particular email or that particular project or document you're working on. So that's something I think comes with a little bit of seasoning.
Sure. I just like Mark that you said about what your kids get out of being with you, and I have had the same experience. But I also really like having the athletes and other teachers and coaches seeing me interact with my kids. Helps them get a better understanding of me and maybe get to know me a little bit better. And so many times I hear kids, "Oh, I love watching you hang out with your daughters, and you guys are always so cute." And it just makes a more community feeling for everybody, right? When they see that side of you, not just the, "Hey, where'd you get that ball?" or "Hey, you should have turned that uniform in already," or whatever the other comments are.
Coach Evaluator is the premier coach evaluation software for schools and athletic organizations and preferred coach evaluation solution of the NIAAA and the Positive Coaching Alliance. The system is completely customizable with an always growing evaluation template library for athletic directors to reference. There are not only evaluations for ADs to use, but also self-evaluations and parent-player evaluations of coaches. Learn more about digitizing and simplifying your coach evaluation process by visiting www.coachevaluator.com. Mention Globetrottin ADs to receive a $200 discount on the yearly rate.
Kukri are a global multi-sport clothing brand specializing in providing the world's most prestigious schools with bespoke made and designed team uniforms for students of all standards and abilities. If you are frustrated by inconsistent colors, branding, costs, and sizing across your school's uniforms, then it's time to discuss an offering where every sport is available from softball to soccer for male and female athletes at rates to suit your budget. To find out how Kukri could elevate the apparel of your student athletes to a professional level, email the team at contact@kukrisports.com. A dedicated sales manager will offer you a quote today. Mention this ad and receive a special offer on your coach or PE staff order. All right. Well, we talked about a lot of the course. Obviously, Matt highlighted that we can't give it all away. You gotta take the course when it comes out. But if we could go around to each of you with what do you think would be the biggest takeaway for someone that would take the course? Like what, if you can highlight one main thing, or what do what would you hope someone would take away from the course if they took it? If anything at all. You can't say that. There's definitely lots of takeaways. It's the hard part is narrowing it down. So
I think, Nick, one of the things that we know we have in our school is the systems that work for us, systems we'd like to change. Keep the ones that work for you well-tuned, and hopefully your workload is a little less, but the ones that might not be working, you might need to look at just for a little bit. And then, yes, it might increase your workload, but then at the same time, it might, in the long run, help you out. So I say, look at your systems, evaluate the ones that are good and the ones that might need some help.
Yeah, I guess I'll go. It's something that we've spoke about a lot over the last 12 months at our school, because part of our mission for the American School of Dubai is adapt and contribute in a rapidly changing world. And I think there's nothing more rapidly changing in the last 12 months. So what this course will do, I think, will put an AD and be able to take things that they will be able to look at what they're doing, adapt it, or take something new, and then contribute to their institution in a positive way, however that's going to be. And I think that's going to be the two, adapt and contribute, the two biggest ones.
That's great.
I think it just, take it on from John and Mark, it's flips and flips, it's contributing, but also the fact that we are a sought after, figure at the school. We have a wide a range of talents, and people do come to us and ask questions. What do you think about this? How can we manage this? What do you, So I think that's another really important takeaway, that people are showing confidence in us to take on different roles.
Great. Yeah. And it's just how you manage it, right? The course isn't about cutting out work, right? It's just managing the work that you get, right? Cool.
Or taking on too much probably as well, right? It's not going to happen too, which could overburden us and cause some real stress. So I think that's another important thing too, is like, how do you balance those questions you get from folks? You want to help everybody, but I think in some regards there's limits, and negotiating those limits, I think, is important too. All right, so we're now getting towards the end of September a little bit. We're creeping up on the fall season and heading into winter, which will bring us the NADC conference sponsored by the NIAAA. This year it's in Denver. So are you guys thinking about going? Are you planning on it? Or are you going to be able to? I guess that's the big question. Are you going to be physically able to travel, and is your school allowing you, your country you're living in, is it possible to get into the States from where you are?
Scott, I know your answer. You go first.
I've already registered. I just need to book the flight.
Easy peasy. The American in Dubai has no problem, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it right now and just trying to navigate the workload that will come over the next few weeks, as well as the family life, and just seeing kind of does it fit. And just with that time of year, a lot of people come to visit, so we'll just have to see kind of where we're at, but hoping that I'll be there for the first time since Nashville. It's been a while, so I'm definitely due.
Cool. What about you, John? You're the closest.
Yeah, I'm the closest, but I'm sitting this one out this year. I have some family coming down during the break, and that's right when they actually get in, so I'll have to catch it at the next city. Hopefully it's a little warmer, because I'm a little bit more partial to the warm weather.
Yeah, there's some warm cities coming for sure. Matt, we know you're going. Everyone that listened to the last episode, and my big news is that I've been granted my NIE National Something exemption. The United States has deemed me worthy enough to fly in to take part in this conference under the academic exemption rule, because right now you can't fly in if you live in Europe. So
do you have a special stamp in your Canadian passport for that? Or
well, it's a bit dodgy. It's an email that said I was granted it from the government, but all I'll get is an email because it's all recorded electronically. So I'll print the email when I fly, but I'm booking my tickets this week, and I'm looking for some wellness in Denver as well as some good learning. I think that's part of managing the workload is, Mark, taking a break, not worrying about the emails, and clearing your head. So no, I'm really excited. So I wrote the guys at the office. They wrote me a letter to help me, and it's all approved. So Denver, here I come. John, a lot of people watch Global Take. So you were on Global Take, and you talked a little bit about Brasilia and how cool it is. We want to also end our show with some great things about the cities you guys are in. So can you kick us off, John, and tell us something, what you like the best, maybe about Brasilia or Brazil, your new home country?
Yeah. Well, if you're familiar with the Brazilian steakhouse, the churrasco is very, very popular here. So if you're ever just super hungry, you can sit down and be served just nice, finely cooked meat within 20 seconds at restaurants. And I will say that the beverages are quite cold, and they like that here in Brazil, and they call it gelado. If you say that, that's a really, really cold beer.
A special name for a cold beer? Yeah. I like that. That's cool. Cool. All right, Scott, the Dubai brothers. What do you guys?
I think that's a pretty good term for us.
You guys started a new podcast now, calling it.
From a perspective of life in Dubai, it's okay. It's transient, but it's a wonderful expat community. Both of our schools are wonderful when it comes to that. And it's a great place to have a family, live and put down their roots and all of that.
Cool. Are you planning on putting down roots, Scott?
Yes, we are. We're looking at buying a house here and
wow,
and all of that. So
cool. It must be something good. That's for sure. Cool.
Our daughter loves it here.
Yeah. Oh, that's important when the kids are happy for sure, right? Mark, you mentioned you have couple small kids. So what do you think about Dubai?
Got three little ones. Dubai's got everything for everybody. It's got the beaches. So if you enjoy the ocean, it's got the glitz and glamour. If you like the nice restaurants, and then, which I prefer, is I have a Jeep, and you can go an hour and a half, and you're in the middle of the desert, up in the mountains, and you can get the camping and the wadis and just get out to nature. So it does have that bit of everything for everybody's kind of passions, and that's what we really enjoy about it. So it brings kind of that eclectic mix of people from all over, and it's really safe and clean, and yeah, it's just a great place to live. And my kids love it, like Scott said, for his daughter.
Cool. Well, that could be it. John, you mentioned a warmer location, so we should take an NIAAA global conference and put it in Dubai. It's got something for everybody, right?
Absolutely.
That would be pretty cool.
January or February when the weather's nice.
Yeah.
When it's not so hot or humid.
We could put that on the agenda for the international committee meeting. Scott, we're taking notes here. Bruce, if you're listening.
All right, guys. Well, this is great. Managing Increased Workload is the title of this episode. And, we're all on our own journey in terms of how to do that. Everybody's situation is different, but I think the topics we discussed here today, the content that's going to be a part of your course of 910 is great. And I'm really appreciative you were able to develop those and share those out with us. And thank you very much for the time you put into that. And I'm sure everybody at the NIAAA will appreciate it too. And thanks again for joining us and spanning the time zones once again to be guests on our podcast. So just want to say everybody have a great rest of the year, and hope you're off to a good start. And we'll see you around next time. Thanks everybody for joining us once again on the Globetrottin ADs.
Until next week, this has been another episode of the Globetrottin ADs.